Um, how many people are most of you from Indy or?
There's a few foreigners in there. A couple.
Apparently there's a weird echo. Oh, here we go. Is the echo gone? You unmuted me at the same time that I muted myself.
Okay. Am
I
I?
can't hear it because I muted my speaker.
All right, I think so. Everybody, maybe raise a hand on the call if you can hear me. Looks like I'm mic'd up.
Yeah, they're saying that it's better.
Okay.
And we have thumbs up and hands up. We got a lot of emojis.
Okay. So yeah, my name is Matthew Paradise. I'm a senior consultant. I work for Blue Maven. One of my most recent contract was with the state, specifically INDOT. But as I said before, I'm from Indianapolis. I went to Rebuff, went to Xavier University, played some sports there, and quite a few years ago, I was confronted after getting injured whether I was going to get a real job or pursue playing sports and not getting paid a whole lot because it was really, it was basically semi-pro. And I got a call from a place in Brownsburg, a claims repricing place, and got into Visual Basic and SQL Server. That's how long ago that was. And I've been in IT ever since.
Which Visual Basic?
6.0 maybe, I think.
What sports you play in college?
What's that?
What sport did you play?
So I actually was on a baseball scholarship, but it was the only school that would let me play soccer and baseball.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
And I ended up playing professional indoor in Florida when I got hurt. Indoor soccer. I was getting paid like $200 a week or something. It was nothing.
Xavier, that's pretty, yeah, Division One, yeah.
All right. So public sector and AI. So as I said before, I worked at INDOT for a little bit here, over a year, and we had some really cool stuff that we were doing. Now, originally, so I've done this presentation for a few different groups. I wasn't 100% sure who I would be presenting to. So the beginning is a little bit of an overview of AI, but I imagine most everyone kind of understands the basics of AI. So I can probably fast forward after that. Then I'll go into the current initiatives and some of the research stuff, because that was really cool, because I was also the liaison to our JTRP program, which is a program with Purdue University where we would jointly come up with proofs of concept, and we'd collaborate for about 18 months and they would produce something. And then I've got the future prospects and then just some basic things to worry about. So my role was not really a project manager, but I was more of a product owner. And so that's why the last section is in there, just some of the challenges we faced and some of the things to think about when you're using AI. So here was my generic overview of AI, because last time I gave this, it was people all over, not just developers. But I'll let you just look at this model. The main thing that people think of when they think of AI is going to be ChatGPT, Gemini, or Copilot. And a lot of people don't even realize that there's a lot more that goes into it. And, when you ask someone, oh, hey, what LLM do you use? They'll be, oh, I use Copilot. I use ChatGPT. Well, Copilot and ChatGPT use the same LLM, as probably most of you guys here know. There's just a lot that I had to learn in taking on this role, and didn't really get into the discriminative AI, but mainly the machine learning and the deep learning. So essentially the generative AI and the LLMs, which we'll get into exactly what we were doing. Okay, and I added this layer in too because people are asking me recently about AI agents versus the generative AI and just LLMs. And an agent's going to have to use an LLM. Pretty much any AI is going to really use an LLM. But the whole idea of using agents, is there anybody here that uses agents for any of the things they do? Okay, all right. So we've already had people. So you understand that it's not necessarily generative. You're basically training your agent to do things that a human possibly could do. It can learn, but instead of just you prompted to do something and it spits back something to you, it's going to actually be able to control things and learn and do it on its own. So that's a whole nother presentation that I could do at another time. Okay, cruising along. our AI initiatives. Now, I wanted to put this at the end because this is one of my favorites, and it was the biggest one. And actually, it's on my LinkedIn page, but I can I can send it to the people here. I wrote a white paper on this, and Google picked it up, and my stakeholder, who was the chief counsel, yeah, chief counsel. We didn't have a CIO. It was Allison Grand. She and I co-wrote the white paper, but this was something that was really cool, and they're still using it today. So the first project I really kind of got into at INDOT was this document creation project, and it was started by this mandate from Governor Braun. So, and it wasn't just that they wanted us to create a typical state documentation document about what we were doing. It had a really swift deadline, and so depending on your department, and the people that were here earlier may know that INDOT's the second largest department in the state. We had 3,800 to 4,000 employees. Doing something like this for us would be bigger than a department that had 100 or 200 or 300 people and just a few different types of documents. So the government mandate, the executive order was 2513. And as you can see on the screen, all the state agencies only had 30 days to complete it. And inside it, you had to map all of your different statutory responsibilities to their purpose, and then use relevant data to justify everything in your document, and then list pain points. And there was just a lot of different things. It's just interesting. It was almost like, where did this come from? But when it's an executive order, at that point, it doesn't matter. You still have to do it. But for INDOT, I mean, just all of the different types of documents we had and scattered across, decades of just whether it was SharePoint or like a shared drive or, OneDrive or all these different things we had to go through. And you can imagine if one person was supposed to do that, I mean, how long it could possibly take. And here's just an example of just one area. And this is where the documents were located for construction and materials. This was one of 4 pages, right? And you would click into certain things, and there might be 200 or 300 documents. So imagine somebody trying to comb through that to come up with this document. Plus, because of budget cuts, we had a lack of resources. So we didn't, something like this might have been done by an intern or something. We didn't have that. And then also, due to attrition, when you work at the state, some of the lower level jobs, there's a pretty high turnover rate. So just knowing where everything was difficult. So this whole project was championed by Allison Grant, who I mentioned earlier. And when you're going to be using AI, especially in public sector, you really need to have someone who's not afraid of it, because a lot of areas were afraid of it. And even there were some other executive orders around AI because the state in general was afraid of it. So I know some of you have done work with the state, so you probably have had to go through this group called MPH, the Management Performance Hub. They're kind of like a go-between centralized IT, but we had to basically justify what we're doing was going to be, within the NIST AI RMF standards. So, the risk is going to be risk averse and all these different things. But for this one, we had leadership say, okay, look, we already have a test environment in GCP. We have some documents. We need to see if we can do this. She wanted our area to be AI first or AI forward, and wanted to be, a cutting edge. In that, as far as other departments of transportation around the country, has always been top 5 for innovation and technology. And she was all about this. And so that's why we were like, okay, we're going to go straight forward. We're going to get this done, even if we don't technically go through MPH. It was more of a do it now and then ask for forgiveness later. But we definitely still followed the NIST RMF, and we made sure that everything was grounded and there wasn't personal information, all these different things that you have to when you're working for the state. All right, so Gemini. A lot of you probably know what Gemini is. If you don't, Gemini is Google's version. It's their AI platform, their model. I think we used 2.5, and we had access to the Vertex Studio, so it wasn't chat based. And so we set out, and a lot of people that use AI think of it just in prompting and chat related generative AI. And have any of you used an AI studio for what you're doing here?
Yeah, studio, like, instead of like the integrated stuff into.
Yeah, like a studio where you basically are just building it yourself. You choose an LLM, but then you do all of the different the prompting and create your models separately and ground it and create your rags.
But not via the plugin.
Not
Yeah,
via,
I've used it via like Copilot built into VS Code.
no, it would be a whole studio. What would it be?
Are you talking Google AI Studio?
Yeah, so for
Oh, that like the one that the specific.
Like agent builder.
yeah, so we didn't use Agent Builder. I guess it's called Agent Space, but we use yeah, and so I've tried it a little bit, but we use Vertex AI Studio, and it's really cool. It integrates with Python, and you can integrate it with instead of using, I think I have a doc, instead of using your say like your C drive, you use buckets and all these different things, but you can do the AI locally, but it's not really local. It's all on the cloud. And probably should have made this presentation a little bit more, chronological. We had a test environment from the JTRP program with Purdue that we had Google credits for. So that also took the handcuffs off of being strapped to how much you can spend in compute and all that stuff. Because I really believe if you want to be good at AI, you've got to be able to play around with it and not be worried about cost and all these different things. So this is one of the reasons why this project was so groundbreaking, is that we weren't constrained by cost, and we could figure out, how many tokens things cost and how it was going to, impact our budget, et cetera, and, the fact if your prompts weren't right and you had to write new prompts and all that stuff, it was excellent. And, I don't work for the state, so I can say this: if you want to use Vertex, I have some connections at Google, and they're very great about giving you credits to do this so that you see how great it is, so that you can see if you want to move forward. So in addition to all that great GCP stuff, in order to get done what we needed to get done, we could not just connect GCP to our state environment. And that was one of the things that I was talking about with the MPH group, where they're kind of a governing body. We knew that if we did that we were going to break some internal laws. So what we had to do is use Python scripts to go out and scrape documents and scrape data. And then initially we had to not just grab them, we had to actually assemble them into one long file, which, everybody here as programmers, is probably at some point in time you've built something where you can screen scrape or things like that. So that was something that we definitely had to do. The cool thing was it was all text. So for this project, everything was going to work quickly. And we built our RAG. So if you know AI, so that it's a retrieval augmented generation, where you basically ground what you're going to do. So what most people, yep.
Were you to, when you eventually were able to query all this data, were you able to say or ask it, where did this information come from?
Mhm.
Where it would cite evidence, like by document and where?
Yep.
You said it wasn't documents, you had to put everything in one big document, so that was your.
To put it in, yeah.
And to index it, okay.
Yeah, but it was indexed
cool.
by actual document. So our RAG, so we grounded it based on the documents that were available to people in the state environment. In Vertex, if I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with grounding, but if you want to make your model more accurate, you typically would want to ground it with examples of things that are going to be relevant to what you're trying to accomplish. So for us, it was state documents and examples of things very similar to what was being asked of us. Inside Vertex and other AI studios, you can, I don't know why they have this, you can ground it in the web, but I feel as if it's just it's just too much out there that you're really not going to be ground. You're just gonna be more worried about your prompting being accurate than you are just the data that it's being able to pull from. So in our rag, we had all the relevant documents from INDOT after creating that Python script, and it went out and we did a few different iterations. We had an example that our chief legal counsel had come up with, and she was also a deputy commissioner, and then a couple other deputy commissioners, because we did this for 9 different areas. They agreed on that, and you fed that in, so it had a nice example to work with. And then boom, after just a few iterations, we were able to come up with this AI pilot that satisfied what the government mandate required of us. And now I was lucky enough to have a developer that was able to drop everything that he was doing for this project. So it was a good 40, he might have worked a little more overtime, 40 or 50 hours. But yeah, we were able to about 98% fidelity, as you can see in this chart. Every person, so it was 9 departments, 9 divisions. So, and this is really important too. We didn't just take what it spit out because it looked great and then present that. Each division had somebody in the loop to look over it and make certain everything was right. And a few times it found things that was maybe duplicate, but worded differently, or left some things out. But that was few and far between, and that was early on. And after we adjusted our model, it was, I mean, it was the last 2 divisions, it was 100%. So it was really, really cool what we did. And even though we didn't ask for permission to do it, once we presented this at the state meeting with commissioners, I got a call from MPH, of course, say, hey, did you approve this? Or, we didn't hear about this, but we broke it down, and I showed them what we did and how everything was grounded. But yeah, from there, it is now the template for all of the different departments for the state. Yeah, so that was just one huge AI project that we worked on that I'm pretty proud of. Another one that was really cool was one that started with the Joint Transportation Research Program with Purdue. We used their Google credits, and it was for the universal traffic control device inventory that we have. So imagine all of the roads in the state of Indiana, they all have signs, as you know, but trying to keep track of them and knowing if one exists, like if the cars get hit it, etc. It's always been a manual process. Then it's always wrong. And the only time, a lot of times it can be hazardous for people because if a specific sign is down and, it could cause an accident, essentially. So, you can't just be sending people out constantly. But we do have access to roadway data, and there are vehicles that we pay. It's a company that we pay that sends vehicles down the road. They take pictures all the time. So this pilot was, hey, can we take all this picture data of the roads and not pull out, we were using it for, the actual roads itself, but it had pictures of the signs at the same time. Can we use it to pick out the actual signs? And yes.
Does that have anything to do with the project SEP was working on a few years ago?
I don't,
Where they were taking photos of the roads and then giving like quality reports back to the state? I thought they sold that system to the state or something.
that's not the data we use, but we do use that.
Okay, 'cause
Yeah.
I know they had a whole ML thing.
Yep. Yep. And that's pretty cool too, because just by pictures, it can tell pavement quality, which to me is pretty crazy. Yeah, so this one was trying to pick out like these signs so we didn't have to send people down the road. For the pilot, we only did some I-65 and I-70. So if you're from Indiana, you'd be familiar with where they're at. The goal, automate the detection and classification of it. And we were going to use GCP because we already had credits. Now, here's an example of the data we would be given. We had a 3-part image that was stitched together, and we wanted to take it apart to process each section. So you can see here the left, middle, and right. So we had to write some Python code to do this. But once we were able to pull it apart, we were successfully able to use OCR to actually find the signs in each image. But that was only the first part. I don't know why I have this slide in here.
Same company that builds captchas with that doesn't have 9 block.
No, this does look like a captcha though. Um, so we were able to do this part, which was this original, the presentation just for this was like 50 slides long, but break it apart, analyze each sign, and you can see at the bottom, be able to put little boxes around it to let AI know which one we're going to actually try to diagnose, see what's in there. Now, we came up with, we had a couple problems. So anything with text, there's already like LLMs out there that can find text. I mean, that's super simple. Text on any sign. I mean, it can read it off your badge or whatever. But a lot of our signs didn't have text in them. And so that is where we had to train our model. And that was kind of where the compute cost was going to be. So here's an example. We've got, signs on the left. They all have text in them, super easy. Ones on the right, partial text or not text. And so training our model was a little difficult. But, and things like this, but this is a great use case for AI. It's perfect. It is perfect for that. Now, because it's optical, the training is a lot more compute intense. And when you're paying for AI, it sounds like no one here is actually paying for an AI studio. That's where they make all their money. So at the end of this project, we estimated that to do every single sign in the state of Indiana was going to be about $400,000 in compute costs.
Oh my God.
Which I personally feel like there was a better way to do it, and I'm working on, a project to showcase that. But to do it how we did it, brute forced, it was gonna be $400,000. Mm-hmm.
So push on that one, because I've been wondering the same thing, and you can put a computer together at home.
Mhm.
That, for $6,000 for something that has a high, whatever GPU in it, and you could do model training there.
Mm-hmm.
It's simply better to like spend that kind of money on like hardware that you just run locally and train the model cost effectively there, and then move your model to the cloud.
That's a great question. So, because I was
I
coming,
wondered the same thing for like code completion.
code completion, absolutely. You could run, something locally.
Yeah.
It's gonna be text-based.
It's like Copilot is so well trained. Its models is better than anything I can run at home.
And
I
that's,
need to run my own thing. Yeah,
well, that's the
or
thing.
you can't afford it.
Those type of models are going to be so huge. You're going to need a GPU that has way more VRAM than what you can buy in the store. Now, NVIDIA did just release something to the public that it's a Blackwell RTX 6000, which has 96 gigs of VRAM, which is huge because I think so. I do some of these at home, and I think the largest model I was trying to train had like 45 billion parameters or something, but it would need, like an 80 gigabyte GPU. And it's only, I say only, that GPU is only $8,000. Whereas a lot of these other enterprise GPUs are like $30,000. So nobody is going to just say, hey, let's grab one of those and come up with some models and
Right.
see if we can sell it to people,
So
But-
what I was wondering from a cost perspective.
So that's the thing. I was in the middle.
Once you have the data.
Before we ended some of these projects and I left the state, I was in the middle of trying to come up with a cost analysis for them purchasing their own system. They were going to try to purchase a $50,000 one because this was before they found out about that RTX 6000. And in order to recoup that cost, it was going to be, I don't know, it was going to take quite a while to recoup that cost. But with this new one coming out, a 10,000 setup, I feel like would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about $400,000?
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
do it.
Well, and also it would take, it's going to take quite a bit of time. I would love to have tested it and then like done some models on, on like just to compare the two, because I didn't have the data on the difference between like the ADA 100 or whatever you can get inside a GCP
Mhm.
versus the RTX 6000. Yeah. But yeah, that's a great idea. Anything text-based, I would 100% say just buy your own GPU because you can see the language, and there's plenty for free that you can download if you use a llama or something like that.
Yeah.
And it tells you that in the GitHub before you download it,
What
how
this is.
and how what big a GPU you're going
Yeah.
to need, how much VRAM you're going to need to run it.
Yeah.
And so like some of the things that don't take OCR, you can just download a small model.
Mhm.
If it needs OCR, that's a whole different story. And obviously, if you're going to use Gemini or OpenAI's like GPT-5, you can't do that locally. You're going to have to
Right.
pay.
You
Yeah.
wouldn't get your money back
Mhm.
there.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we had to train and validate. This is a snapshot of this code. That's actually inside of GCP. That's G Cloud. Like a lot of Python. It was like a little bit above my pay grade, but I think I explained it pretty well though, because you have to scrape the data, put it into one format, and then you can write your prompts or one particular file. Now all of the image data was saved in a bucket. So when you have text data, that stuff you put in a database, BigQuery is what we used. But all the sign data, it's more like blob data. That's unstructured. So you need something that can handle that. And so the cloud version of that in GCP were buckets. So it's like a C drive essentially. And then here you go. Vertex AI was the AI engine. We used Gemini 2.5. So, and that's what we did, and it was successful. It was like, I think it was that one. Oh, I didn't put the slide in there, did I? It was 99.9% accurate. There was and the one sign that it didn't detect properly was literally a billboard that had a picture of a construction sign for advertising. So it's technically a construction sign, an actual sign, but it was a billboard. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Here we go. 100% is what they put. It's like 99.999. Thousands plus signs. And the MUTCD is the Universal Transportation something diagram. It's basically a list of all of the sign images and the formats for the entire country. And so it's standardized. So that's why it looks the same in every state. Yeah. And there's like 170 or 100 and something of them. We did 108. Yeah, so there it is, symbolic signs, fit 565 out of 570. Yes. Mhm.
This database and such available, or the code available, open source.
So that is a good question. It's technically in our JTRP instance right now. I keep saying our, but that's a good question. I know I've had a couple of discussions with different states about this. So, because they want to know if some group in Europe already did this in Europe. But yeah, this is the first time any Department of Transportation has done this here.
Yeah.
It's like you should submit a freedom of information.
But that's not how it works. You just call it.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine you could. Yeah, if it's done by the state, the state owns it, and if you're, the resident of the
Like, I think
state.
if any federal funds were used, it has to be released to the public.
Well,
And,
mm,
like, so if any grant money was used, I know because I wrote ECWS.
okay,
So, we had to, there's a whole thing about that, like
I
federal funds were used, so it needs to be open source.
I didn't know that. So does it have to be?
But nobody wanted, you still have to get the release from the state. The state would give the release. So it's kind of like.
Huh.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah.
It always involves wood. Everything involves.
I mean, we do a lot of custom coding. And one of the other projects I was on, because we had determined after this project we were going to move to GCP, was to kind of justify the spend. We had a bunch of use cases, and Google said, "Hey, we'll give you the resources to do these use cases as long as you move your database from Google, like from Oracle to like Google, things like that. And we had 240 different apps, I think, at INDOT that had been developed, and like I had to go through them. And I'm going to discuss that a little bit later because when we're talking about hallucinations and how AI is fallible, I
Yeah.
tried to use it to come up with the likelihood of being able to move those into GCP, and it just kind of went wonky on me. But I'll get into that in just a little bit. So here we go. So research programs and pilots. The crash data cleanup one was one big one with Google. There's numerous JTRP ones, which I won't go into because technically they're not state, they're Purdue, they're like a joint thing. So I can just tell you kind of what a little bit of what they're about. And then the work zone safety one, everybody knows what that is. Or if you don't, you kind of will after I explain it. So the crash location cleanup, this was kind of a big one. Whenever there's a crash, a police officer, sheriff, or whoever goes out to the crash scene, they type in where it happened and all this different data and details in, for future reference, we need to know where dangerous intersections are, et cetera. And it's only about 80% accurate. One of the reasons being wherever they put it in, there's a GPS location based to the police officer. So this accident on this picture, for instance, they're probably gonna get the cars out of the intersection, or the police officer is gonna find the closest place he can park. So if there's no place to park on the street, he might go to a parking lot and then it'll show up in the wrong place, or they may not know where they're at. If it's a state trooper, he's off the highway, he may not know. And so it's pretty bad. We had all the data, but based on things in the actual police report, we thought, maybe Google can figure out where it truly was. And it all was going to feed into this traffic safety collision data in Tableau that everybody has access to. This is a public facing site. But the whole garbage in, garbage out thing, I mean, the data inside here is only as good as the data itself. So, what's the point if it's only 80% accurate? But here's a quick example. So the input, all this stuff would come in from the police report on the left. And we were able to come up with a little quick model in Google, and we did like 3 or 4 different locations, and it came up with most of this on its own. That output is straight from Vertex. It's just organized. It makes sense. It even talks about the correlation and how it came to the result that it had. So even though this was when Google said was they were probably going to do, after they showed us this demo, the state was like, maybe we'll get a different use case because I think we could do this on our own. But yeah, this is another really cool one we did. Here's a few of the cool projects I was on. LiDAR-based traffic monitoring. You probably, if you know what LiDAR is, this is probably nothing groundbreaking, but integrated smart work zones. That's one I kind of put the kibosh on. There was a project where people wanted, guess I can talk about this because we're not going to do it. They wanted to put RFIDs in like construction worker vests and pylons and all that stuff. And it'd be excellent. And it'd be very safe, but it's just very cost prohibitive, geofencing prioritization. That's another one. Don't even know what that one is. But the enhanced traffic pattern recognition, that was using vehicle data to determine where we were going to actually, and past event data to see where we were going to need like police officers, or where there might be congestion so we can change traffic lights, et cetera. It's like if there's a Taylor Swift concert, historical data will show this is where the backups are because we have all this vehicle data. So I don't know if you know this, if you have a vehicle, you're transmitting your location, how many times you hit the brake pedal, all that stuff, but really without your consent.
And Google, I mean, that's how Google shows on the map.
Yeah.
We've seen millions of phones transmitting all the time their location.
But it's also the vehicle. So that's another thing. So hard braking is another study. So how often you hit your brake pedal and how hard you hit it. A lot of the newer cars can tell that as well.
Well, that was it wasn't for. Yeah, in trouble because no one was reading in the user agreement that Kia shares that data. And the insurance companies were buying the data and they could correlate it back to who the driver was. So people's insurance rates were going by whenever they signed up for like the smart services in their car, their insurance rates would go up because you know, Allstate or State Farm or whatever, would be tracking them and be like, oh, we see you hit your brakes a lot. And then, I think.
Or your speed, your average
whoever the
speed.
Car manufacturer was got sued for not making it very clear that they're selling that data, and then Ford came out and said, we'll never share your data ever.
Okay.
And so I took a screenshot of that, because I know eventually they will.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna keep that. Yeah, I did have a question about this, so. Given the data that you've got, did you guys look at using like many, like MCP data? Like using MCP to go and reach out to like, I don't know if Google offers it, but Google's own traffic data and correlate it with yours? Is that something that?
Yeah, there actually is a JTRP project for that, and they were using, what was it? And they visualized it. And you could actually go in and you could select different events or different types of things. Yeah.
Think of petabytes of data they got, that they can instantly rewind it, just some of this.
Yeah, so some of this data we were talking about moving over into GCP when I was talking about like Google saying, hey, if you can put it in our thing. And I think it's 17 billion a month, I think, for that data. That's how much we're accumulating.
Oh,
Seven-
no, that was cost.
No, 17 billion rows.
Well, there's a staff benefit.
No, no. Yeah.
Sorry, too soon. Too soon.
So here's another JTRP project. You guys have probably seen this if you've ever driven around 465. This was a little bit before my time, but I still had to sign off on it because as the liaison for Indot.IT. But the AI that's inside these cameras and the software they came up with to track you guys when you're going around 465. This came out of a JTRP project. So this was a joint project with Purdue.
And I'm speeding,
Hmm?
those tickets that are technically not going through the courts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So that was a JTRP project. Yeah. I'm not very happy. I've already gotten the ticket from
We should go get a drink out.
it. Okay, so I don't even know where we are in time, but say the document project saved tons of hours. That was just for our department. So who knows how many hours are going to be saved from different departments. Another project I was on, I didn't mention, I noticed this when I was putting this together, bridge weight limit verification. There was we anytime we have surveyors go out, they take pictures of the bridges. We have the whole highway division says bridge weight limit verification, et cetera. And so we have a bunch of historical pictures, et cetera. We also know how much each bridge weight limit is supposed to be. So we have run those pictures through Vertex to see if what's stated on the sign actually matches what's in the system. And it found 20% were not like some anomalies. It's not done yet. There's still meetings going on, but that was another pretty cool AI project. The collision detection lidar and camera. They just bought a system. It's going to be in West Lafayette, of course, because JTRP, but where it's going to monitor vehicles going through an intersection. All right. The challenges, data quality is huge because, if your model is based on bad data, then the results are gonna be bad. Same thing with hallucinations. I imagine everybody knows what a hallucination is in AI. It's essentially when AI is like 90% sure it's got the right answer, but it's actually 90% the wrong answer, essentially. And then the cost of maintaining. So to your point, like doing your own models, if you have your own LLM or your own model, you have to maintain it all the time. Because, say you're using a model that's free, it may have been updated 9 months ago, so it's not gonna be relevant today if you need anything that's not just contained to locally. But here's some famous data quality issues. The AI recruiting tool, people have probably heard about this, where gender bias was created, not on purpose, but based on the resumes put in. Essentially, you put in a bunch of your favorite resumes, all maybe from, say, women, then it's going to only look for women, essentially. And then the Apple Card credit limit controversy was another famous one. The hallucinations. I mean, even the AI legal assistant one is relatively recent. But But even for me, in that project where I was mentioning earlier, where I had to go through that 240 different types of software and see which one would be great candidates to move to GCP and what database. And I had this great prompt and it was going through, and about line 100 or software 100, it started giving me results for software that wasn't even in my list. It was similar and it was DOT related, but had nothing to do with my list. And I did it numerous times. Still couldn't figure out where it went wrong. But that's also why you need a human in the loop all the time, because things will look correct. And if you don't pay attention, you can end up with bad data or bad results. And especially if you're using that to train a model, then your model is going to start going off the rails real quickly. This is like my final slide. So data privacy concerns. Anything inside your model, obviously, you need to know what you're allowed to capture, et cetera. With the signed data asset project, we realized license plates could be in the picture, people's faces, et cetera. So we had to train the model to, not store that data. Same thing with the crash data. And in the pilot picture I showed, it actually had someone's information. I blurred it out, but telling it to get rid of that. But even security challenges, a lot of times people use third-party libraries, and you don't know. I mean, especially if you're using a free model, you don't really know. There's a standard where I think they're called trusted models, where they have to be certified trusted if you want to make sure there's no bias, et cetera. But there's a bunch of different models out there that everybody uses because they're cheaper and you can do all the stuff on your own. That's definitely another security concern. And then obviously the ethical decision making. If you're going to use AI at all, this is where the state, their big mandate was, anything where you're going to make a decision that affects a human being, it has to be 100% approved. So always keeping a human in the loop is huge, but paying attention to what the outputs are and making sure that it's correct is tantamount. Okay, that was it. I went a lot longer than I thought I was going to go. But I hope you guys thought that was interesting. If anybody have any questions?
So does Purdue only use Google's AI, or do they use like a mixture?
They use a mixture, and one of the last things I was had got them to agree to, though, was for all of their backend stuff, instead of using some of the free tools, to use BigQuery or a GCP product. They already had an instance of it, and that was going to make, because when I was the liaison for JTRP, one of the big problems they had before I got there was they could use whatever they wanted, because it was kind of like the Wild West. And so they'd, like, these PhD students would come up with this great thing, and then they'd give it to the state, and we were a .NET C#, and if it was in Python and some of this other stuff, it was just set on a shelf. So, or if it's in a database that didn't, play well with Oracle or whatever. So, that was one of the things, trying to standardize all that stuff. Yeah, does that answer your question? Yeah.
One of your slides, you mentioned geofencing.
Yeah.
What was the tool used?
Oh, I said right after I said that, I don't even know what this one does,
Yeah.
but it was a JTRP project. I know the assessors and surveyors use geofencing. I'm not 100% sure what that project was. It just sounded cool, but that's another JTRP one. And they have a whole website, and you got to Purdue's website. You can search for it. And there's going to be a thing I'm going to be at on the 18th. It's an AI thing, a joint AI between Purdue and Google. So I can give you guys the link to that if anybody wants to sign up for it. I think I have a code to get it down to like $100 as opposed to like $400 or $500. Yeah. But the head of JTRP, Darcy Bullock, will be there speaking about some of this stuff. And I'm sure that all that vehicle data is going to be one of the things he's going to talk about, because when I was at the Google headquarters with him, that was what he was mentioning.
So who wrote the code for getting all the documents into Gemini and then the correlations back and surfacing that information? Did you use AI to generate that? Did you bring people in to write it?
Well, I mean, any code you write you're going to use AI for half of it. But it was a guy in Indot, a guy named Warren. And for that project, my white paper, I listed the people that run the project. So I can give you the link to the white paper if you want. Yeah, so Warren, Brian
I
was
was
the,
curious how he did it.
yeah, I mean, and it's a state thing, so maybe you can get it. I don't know how to export. I actually did try to export the model from there because I know you can export models from GCP. I was
Yeah.
having a tough time. You got to use G Cloud,
Yeah.
and you gotta move it to your bucket and then move it from your bucket to your desktop. And I just kind of ran out of time.
But what was the name of the application that correlated the documents to where the data was retrieved from? Is there a name for that application? Like if I look for it,
Vector AI.
We used Vector, PyTorch, and there was something else.
okay,
Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
And and I'm pretty sure I put that in what we use, I put that in the white paper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So all I have to do is download this conversation's transcript plus the white paper.
Did you
Start querying it.
should be good to go.
That's something I've been doing. Like I'll go grab like months of conversation, like transcripts out of Teams. I'll throw it into Copilot. And then I'll be like, oh, and here's like an architectural document. And then I'll start asking questions and it will surface.
Oh, that is one good thing about Microsoft. I've been using Microsoft forever, like everybody, but not a big fan until Copilot 365 had one good thing, and that was if you ground it, like if you're in a Microsoft ecosystem, it can, and you give it access to all of your documents, your OneNote and all that stuff. It's crazy. It's almost scary how it can tell almost who you are as a person. Like I could ask Copilot 365 what my role was and come up with a description of my job. And it could do that based on transcripts, things I'd said in meetings, projects I was on, things that I'd written, and all that stuff. Now, because the state was before they allowed us to get GCP, because they weren't going to allow us to get GCP, but we'd already done these POCs with it, and we're like, we are already ahead of every other state department. We want this. They made us try out Copilot, and then they allowed us to do Copilot GCP or Gemini at the same time. Copilot was, I thought it was terrible. It would crash all the time. Do you guys have it? Does anybody here use Copilot or Copilot 365 on a regular basis?
No,
It does.
I just did a whole.
Okay.
presentation. And I found that the best thing to do is just use Copilot on the web, because it gives you the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't crash.
Yep.
The moment, and Copilot I found doesn't always crash until you start putting your data into a page. Once you put your data into a page, it starts getting really upset,
Mm,
saying, hey, this page is getting too big.
yeah.
Or, and there's just I think you probably experienced, like, there's like prompts of death that you give it a prompt.
Oh,
And then it just spins.
Yeah.
And then, if you come back, like, after resetting it, if you look, it'll keep the history of it, and if you open that conversation, it'll start spinning again. And then like, if you come back the next day, that conversation's gone.
that was
So,
that was another thing I
like,
had
my
issue.
function is to delete the conversations that cause problems.
Mm,
That's the smartest thing.
that would probably be good because we had the toggle for web and work for grounding Copilot 365, and if you made the mistake of clicking over into that, it would erase everything you just worked on.
Yeah,
So if you didn't copy it and then put it in the next one, it's just gone,
Yeah.
things like that.
I've learned to, with Copilot, the app, you back up, like, all the time, like, any data you get.
Yep.
Move it over, or tell it, give it to me in markdown format. And then I usually copy and paste it into like VS Code.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll fix that.
Hopefully. Yep.
I don't understand why it's so buggy, but
I mean, they're kind of a competitor to ChatGPT a little bit. They use the same LLM. So who knows? Maybe ChatGPT is doing something back end. That's right. Any other questions? Sure.
Okay. Say like this had been man hours, but did you take the cost savings, like, did they run it up the chain, like show like, did it make it the governor's office to say here's how much money was saved?
We did hours saved, not cost savings for that. For the sign data, we used what do you call it? Oh my gosh, the minimum wage in hours that would have been spent and came up with an ROI of 1.8 years. But that was at minimum wage. So if someone's making $15-20 an hour, then it would have been a lot quicker.
it's hard to prove the ROI.
It's very
Yeah,
hard.
like that's the MIT paper that was released, what, just like 2 months ago? It was about like why 95% of AI initiatives fail across organizations. Is a lot of the benefit isn't front office, it's back office. And it's hard to measure back office ROI. There's front office, you can see sales,
Mhm.
money, increased productivity, fewer people had to be hired, money. Whereas back office, people are more efficient, you can't as easily map it to any sort of return on investment because really you just were more efficient.
Mhm.
So there was no investment.
Well, everybody's different too, so it's not like one person is the same as the next. So efficiency is a fluid thing.
But this is the problem you run into, is because you can't put a number on it. The programs for AI get cut. Even though, you're like, look how much work we got done. Like we got the work that would have taken us 6 months. We got done in 1 week. Sweet. But we didn't spend any money, so we didn't save it. No. We didn't spend 6 months worth of, whatever. Well, you can't prove that because the work's done. So you have to have like the AI, they're saying. Not only was that issue, the KPIs, the metrics, the ROI, measure, the evidence of money saved is hard to surface. Not only was that a problem, you also, oftentimes wouldn't get buy-in from the top. So people would do like their, mid-level kind of initiative, or grassroots initiative at the bottom, but because no one at the top was buying in and spreading AI as an okay thing to do across the org, people wouldn't embrace it and it would fail there as well. So like when we did it over at M3, I was a huge advocate. I read that agreement and I'm like, guys, we gotta get messages from top that say we are in on AI, we're 100% into it, and we're gonna support you any way we can because we know that this will make it. And that is what gets buy-in across the org.
Mhm. You definitely do. Like I said, I don't think without Allison Grant, I don't think we would have been able to do what we did. But she was, a person that was like, we're just going to do this. We're going to be a leader. We're going to be innovators, and it's tough to find that in the state. She's no longer there. She's at the Department of, what is it? Not Workforce Development, Indiana Economic Development Corp. Yeah, she's there now, trying to do the same thing. So hopefully I'll work with her again.
Yeah.
But this is kind of one of the things I do with Blue Maven is just go and just find pain points and like hear use cases and ideas. A lot of times you'll find people that they'll come to the table and they'll think this is going to be a great project for AI. And it may be, but it may not be. But if you can get them to just bring all of their ideas and pain points, you may find something that, it's going to be excellent. Because I feel like, to your point, why projects die. I think everybody wants to use AI, but no one knows how to use it. So, they spend some money on it and they don't see any results. And not just because of ROI, they just aren't using it correctly or don't have the right use cases or know how to get the right use cases.
And they don't have the right resources to use it.
That's another thing too. Yeah.
And that's something that I was talking with a guy today. I was at S&P and he's in manufacturing. He's like, so, if there's an AI, could I tell it, that I want to go to Joseph A. Bank and get a scan of my body, and then it would recommend, different suits that I can wear. I'm like, yeah, it would be terrible. It probably wouldn't work. And he goes, really? I go, yeah, because everything you just said means you know nothing about development. So it would make a whole bunch of guesses. But it's not that you're going to Joseph A. Bank. It's really that you need to go get the measurements of a human being, in this case, a male. Are you not going to support females at all? Yeah. And, young people, people who might be missing an arm, you don't know. And then what are all the attributes of that? And then how do you feed that into the attributes of a suit? And what are all the different materials? And, there's fat people and there's skinny people and everything in between. Yeah. And so if you don't know all of those parameters, you're going to get something that you're going to be like, oh, AI sucks. But no, it's really, you just don't know what you're doing. You don't know the industry. And you don't know how to, you know, you're also not a builder, you're not an architect. So that's why you didn't get what you need.
Yep.
And he's like, oh, yeah, I guess I didn't think of it that way. Yeah. You know,
Mhm.
don't ask some random guy on the street, you know, to fix your car.
Right.
Or you're gonna, you can give him money, but you'll have a broken car.
And that's kind of why I put in that section where it just kind of showed it's not just simple AI. I mean, even though it's just documents, we had to use a lot of Python and come up and screen scrape and some other things, which really, use it to its
Yeah,
full advantage.
Plan.
Hmm?
Strategy.
Yep.
Now, did you find, I mean, 'cause it sounds like you did this months ago.
Mhm.
You know, was this months ago or last year?
It's months ago.
Okay,
We're trying to continue it for all the signs. You talking
Yeah.
about the documents or the sign one?
the documents,
The document one, yeah, that was about 6 months ago.
okay. Because everything you're talking about sounds like stuff that you could have done this year, like last year would have seemed almost impossible. Just at the state of LLMs and all the tools, they were so buggy and crappy, and the ecosystem hadn't built out. But are you finding now, like, at the pace
It's
that this
much
stuff is
better.
changing,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the original, the sign,
realizing 6 months later, you're like, holy crap, had I only had the tools today, 6 months ago.
our developer said that exact thing. So when he started with the sign OCR project, I think it was Gemini 1.5 or 2 or something, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
And, and so when we did these latest ones, it was 2.5 and it was just way
Night and
better.
day.
Yeah. So,
That's why I'm blown away.
Mhm.
It's like people who thought AI was terrible last year, because even I used AI, like Copilot AI a few years ago when they were just kind of testing it out. Like, oh, that's really cool, but like,
yeah.
not all of these are good examples. It's buggy. Yeah, and then started getting better. More people started getting on the bandwagon, and then Microsoft got serious about it and built into VS Code, and it worked really well in VS Code, not Visual Studio.
Hmm.
Why? Those. And then now you're starting to get some parity there, and the models are actually really good and have context and memory.
Mhm.
It's almost like they're plateauing now that they have context and memory.
Well, it
Yeah.
could, they don't put out a new release like every week or month like most companies, with software. So it'll be interesting to see when the next version comes out, like how big of a leap it is. Yeah.
And MCPs,
Mhm.
kind of like helping you get to the next one. You know, like I need more information that wasn't in the base model.
Mhm.
And actually seeing people use MCPs effectively.
Hmm.
Thanks for the presentation. That was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Thank you all for
What are you doing now?
So I'm just working for Blue Maven right now, which I actually have a meeting with Dana Transmissions
The next time we're meeting.
at the end of the week.
in January.
It's an MSP, but
January.
I'm using it
And
to
we're
kind
gonna
of,
do lightning talks in
to do
January. Because
side
that's like one of the lightest months. You know, everyone's at the gym, you know.
Yeah.
Happy holidays. We get to say that now.